Hey guys, welcome back to the Rebrand Podcast. I think this is episode 10 of our second season, and we're excited to be back with you again. We hope you've been being blessed by the past episodes. If you haven't had a chance to check them out, you can go back. They're all there. Today we're gonna talk about culture. We obviously represent different cultural backgrounds and different upbringings just within, the three of us here. But there's similarities, there's differences, and of course, you guys will have your stories as well. And so we're just going to share our story, kind of like how we were brought up and what our cultural norms look like, and our upbringing and that type of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. It's great as how God is doing this. We're trying to move out of the way. Coming up pretty soon, hopefully, a partnership with another ministry. Keep us in your prayer, because that's going to be a big partnership and great thing, so we can have a permanent. We have been talking about this, a permanent place that we can record our podcast and perhaps do one-on-one meetings with some of the youth, and just really grab some coffee and minister to one another. But many people don't know what all of us have gone through, and if we are going to be honest, some of our upbringing and our homes and our cultures, we go through a lot of trials and drama and big difficulties. Some of Hispanics, but even we have Javi from Costa Rica. So if you know the map, we're not all Mexicans. So that's sorry, I busted your bubble there if you thought we were all Mexicans.
Especially Andy.
That's right.
Yeah. So, but United States, Mexico, Guatemala, that's where I'm from, and then El Salvador, Honduras, Costa Rica, Nicaragua.
You forgot Nicaragua
first, and then Costa Rica. See, I don't even know that. But then Panama, and then you go on and on to South America. But different difficulties. Most of the land we have places that are beautiful. United States, Mexico, Central America. Many people go on vacation for so many other places. But it's not the land that makes people go somewhere else. It's in my scene, many families, many move different places for job placement, career. We have people that go to college from Indiana to California to Florida to, it's like we go everywhere. And then there's people that go to do internships to Europe, to whatever their role is. Stability, safety. I remember a lot of people move from the inner city to the outer skirts of the place because it's just a lot of crime, a lot of poverty. So you want something better for your family. But I came into the States when I was 5. Javi, how old were you when you came?
It was 97, 96, so I had to be about 6, 7, about that.
Yeah, and you were born here in Indianapolis, correct?
I was born here.
Yeah. Do you know where your parents were born here or?
Yep. Both parents were born here, and then one side of my grandparents, so my maternal grandparents, were both from Indiana, not necessarily Indianapolis, but Indiana, and paternal grandparents were from Wisconsin and Ohio. But a further back ancestral lineage from my last name, Hamilton, at least from my my father's side is Scottish.
Yeah.
So it's still United Kingdom, great,
Yeah. Yeah.
English, background, but Hamilton
they
is
used-
a big
they-
Scottish.
They used to wear the skirts, and
Used to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Scotland has actually there's an island called Hamilton, Island. So
Oh wow.
I don't know if there's royalty there or not.
Yeah,
You know.
you should go claim your money right there. You probably have a castle there.
Right.
But we all come from different places, and some of our families come from places that we never visited sometimes.
Yeah.
And they've gone through their own. If we look back in their histories, everyone had a struggle to get here. And the reason why cultures is because we're in America, and this is one of the toughest subjects. We want to understand people, we want to love people, but we cannot do that unless we get to know them. Yeah. We cannot do that unless we really know what people are gone through. And a lot of times when you're stable and have been born in one place, you never moved. Always, you were born in that house, and you went to high school and graduated, went to college, came back to the same house, and you got married, and the house is still there. Your parents are still there. Some of you guys had that privilege of stability, yep. But some of us. So I was 5 when moved to the States.
So born in Guatemala.
Born in Guatemala City.
Guatemala City.
Guatemala City.
Okay.
Born in Guatemala City. I want to do a rebrand missions trip to Guatemala and Costa Rica. We just go visit those two places. Yeah. And then eventually we'll go to Scotland. I think it's going to be more expensive to go that way.
Rebrand International.
Yeah.
We've already been to Israel, so
Yeah. So we're going places.
So question, what was your family back home? Where were they socially, economic status? What's the background there?
Yeah, so basically my dad's father was a painter. My dad's father and my dad became a painter, but not like painting houses, but they do like commercial signs, so signage back in the day that used to be free-handed. Wow. My dad used to do like drawings and freehand, like rivers and things like that. So that was his main trade. So he did that and he pastored. But my dad had a rough upbringing. I don't know. I think on my dad's side there is some German blood there. And one of the things is my grandpa didn't want me. He rejected me. He died when I was 2, but I was a little too dark. They kept me on the oven too much, and he was. My dad is light skinned, so my grandfather was probably like you guys lighter, and when I came out of the oven. It's like, nah, they burned this kid. This ain't my grandkid. So he rejected me. So from 2, I had been rejected.
So when you say rejected, like he didn't want anything.
Yeah,
to do
he
with
didn't want
you?
anything to do with me.
Yeah.
I don't. That's what I hear. So I wasn't like I was there, but I wasn't there.
So
mentally.
So the melanin in your skin comes from your mom's side.
So my mom's dark skin, more Indian. From my grandma. I don't know if they're Mayan or somewhere. I will go, ooh, but my dad's side more light skin. My mom's darker. So Guatemala, what I remember, because I do remember different things. I was never independent, so I had to go to places because they would take me. But back in the 80s, it's a lot of struggles, and just different reasons why people move. They didn't ask me. I wasn't old enough to say I want to stay. I want to go. I had to, but they were struggling. I remember on my mom's side.
So the move was because of financial struggle or a calling?
No, it wasn't a calling. I don't think it was a calling. My dad was a pastor and an evangelist, so he used to come to Mexico and preach, and then he came to the border of the U.S. and Mexico and preached there. He got a permit to come to the Valley in Texas and preach there. Then he got invited to go to New York and preach there. And then he went back home. All of this he was doing by himself, and we were always home. And then finally, I think he came to New York. He liked it there, and he decided to stay. So on one of those invitations, he decided to stay, and
By himself.
By himself. So he sent for my mom and us.
Okay.
That was in 85. And it was I remember that trip exactly like if it was yesterday. One of the toughest trips a 5-year-old can take. We came without visas, and we came undocumented. So we came undocumented through Mexico, and we came undocumented through the United States. And as a 5-year-old, I saw things that I cannot unsee.
Mm-hmm.
I heard things that I cannot unhear.
Yeah.
And they wanted a better life. They made their own decisions. I can't blame them. I thank God that they made those decisions, because here I am now. But it was difficult the way we came. I think it took us like 2 weeks to get here, when it can take you 2 and 3 hours flight to get here. Yeah. There was not enough finances to bring the whole family. So my mom had to make a decision to leave 2 of my sisters back.
Wow.
So there was 4 of us already. One of my sisters was 3 months old. She couldn't leave that one. The other ones were 2 and 3 years old. And she had to leave them. And this is where a lot of times we make decisions that we think they're best, but they're not the best ones. She didn't want to leave them with my grandma. She left them with someone from church. And that was a bad move. That was a bad decision. My sisters suffer. Just little things or stories that my mom, when we got here, would send them clothes, money, and everything. My sisters never saw any of that. Mm-hmm. Only the other kids from that other family saw that. So my grandma had to go steal them from that lady, because they were not eating well. They were being mistreated. So it's those things that I look back and. But coming through Mexico, I remember, and this is all going to be hopefully one day before I die in an autobiography somewhere. But I remember not being able to eat because Mexican food was hot and spicy. And I was 5 years. We didn't eat spicy stuff in Guatemala, even though some places in Guatemala they do. But I would not eat because everything was spicy. Tacos with spicy, milk with spice, I guess. I don't know. Everything had, hot, and I wouldn't eat. So I came sick, but
and hungry.
Different train trips that really changed my it's like I want to encourage young people, don't let struggles of life depress you, keep you down. God allows us to go through stuff to make us strong. He don't want to make weak people. He wants to make strong people. So there are things that are going to come our way that we're not going to be happy. We're not going to like. It's going to hurt us, but it's for a purpose, for a reason.
Well, everybody has a past, right? I mean, you look at like the Israelites, for example. You know, the Jewish history is a tough history. Like they had a hard up, coming up, but eventually, there was some strength that came out of that, and great people that came out of that.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Can I jump in on?
You
real
can
quick?
always jump in anytime.
I was just thinking about process that God takes us through, and just things that are happening in my life, recognizing how God has prepared me for these moments, right? And we often focus on the finish line, the prize, the trophy. And we've talked about this. The good stuff is in the process. That's where we really grow, when we learn. And the mentality that we see week to week in this world is get to the weekend, right? Get to Friday, right? Yeah. We forget there's beauty in the mundane. We forget there's beauty in the Monday through Friday. There's beauty there. Yeah. And if we don't learn to appreciate the struggles of life, the challenges of life, all we're looking is toward the Friday. Yeah. And the next thing we know, it's Monday again. Yeah. And it just we fall into a cycle of depression and frustration because there's so much more that we miss out on the now because we're looking into that Friday symbolically, not just work, but life in general. And when that Friday gets here, it's short and it's not that great, or it's not as great as we thought it was going to be. And that brings me to something I was just looking at lately, and just looking at Moses, the Israelites, Egypt. 3 things. Moses had been in the desert 40 years prior to the 40 years he did with the people of Israel. So when he kills the Egyptian, he runs into the wilderness. And he's there 40 years before God calls him, hey, go let my people go, right? And then he does another 40 years. And I don't know if he does a full 40 on the second time, but close to that with the Israelites, right?
79, I'm just kidding. 64 days.
Well, I mean, he did. He saw him through to
almost
the promised land.
Yeah. So I don't know if the second was a full 40 that he was part of. I know the people were in there for 40 years, but he wasn't part of the entering into the promised land. So, but just seeing how you don't hear Moses complain in the desert the second time, but the people are. God had already prepared him for this time. He had to go through his own desert personally so that he could lead others through a time in the desert, right? And that was helpful for me as I go through challenges, as I'm going through difficult times. I'm noticing more and more God took me through that to prepare me for something. Maybe I'm supposed to help someone through what I've gone through, and it was hard. I think about my dad's passing. Like, why do I have to have them at this time of my life? But how does that prepare me to be able to guide others and help others through their desert? Secondly was, and I don't know if we've talked about this, but when God calls, when Moses goes to Pharaoh and he tells me, hey, God says, let his people go. The reason isn't to take him to the promised land. Right. The promise, we see it early on in Genesis. So the promise of the promised land was there. They were supposed to get that land all the way back to Abraham. God gave them. So they were supposed to go there. But that's not the reason God wanted to free his people from Egypt. It was to go worship him in the desert. Hosea 14, the Lord is speaking to his people, and he says, therefore I'm going to allure her, and I will lead her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. There I will give her back her vineyards, and I will make the valley of Anchor a door of hope. There she will respond as in the days of her youth, as in the days she came out of Egypt. It's in the desert that he wants to work all these beautiful things. He wants to speak to us tenderly. He isn't taking us to Paris, France. He isn't taking us to Italy. He isn't taking us Miami Beach, beautiful places in Guatemala, Costa Rica. It's times of deserts that he is drawing us to, right? So And the significance of going into the desert out of Egypt was so they could have relationship with him before they had relationship with his blessing, so that they would worship him for who he was, independent from a blessing, because if not, then the blessing becomes the idol, right? And the last thing we've talked about, I shared this, in Egypt, the people ate fish, leeks, onions, and garlic, right? And this is like, these are all like potent flavors, you know. You eat any of those three and you eat something immediately after and it still smells, still tastes like the fish, the onions, the leeks, the garlic, like whichever you eat. In the desert, they eat manna. Yeah. And it was bland. Right? But if that process didn't happen, they get to the promised land, that milk still tastes like garlic, onions, leek, fish. That honey of the promised land still tastes like garlic, onion, leeks, fish, right? So that desert was a cleansing, right? There was something very important in that. That desert was vital to be able to fully enjoy the blessings of the promised land, to fully taste and see the goodness of God, right? To taste that milk it had to be the best milk ever, right? That honey had to be delicious, right? Yeah. So deserts, promises, challenges, they're part of life, and God uses them to teach us. Sometimes I think they're direct consequence of men's sinfulness, of our sinfulness, but even in that, if we love him and we are called, he'll work it for our own good. He'll mold us through that process. And I'm just recognizing, and I'll share a little bit how that correlates with what we're talking about, culture and my upbringing and just seeing things now.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was just going to say, you brought up the Moses, not complaining in the desert, but what does happen to him is he gets frustrated. So all that to say, in the desert, it's never going to, it's challenging. It's not going to be a smooth ride. There's going to be bumps in the road. He was frustrated with the people. He got frustrated with God. Like, you're not going to let me in the promised land. I've done all this.
Why you gave me all these people? Burn them.
Strike the rock. That's really what barred him from going in. That was it, But there was frustration and there was surely, anger, whether it be righteous or not, but anger. And in those desert times, it's like you said, it's challenging. It's not smooth, but it's needed in order for you to appreciate the promised land of your own life. But
and the reason why it's important for us to really appreciate everyone's culture, everyone's process is that we all are in this together. No matter if you're white, black, brown, yellow, you speak English, Spanish, French, whatever it is, God has us in different processes. And if we don't learn how to appreciate one another's process, we'll get frustrated with each other because we don't know where we are. Maybe I'm 2 steps behind. Maybe you're 2 steps ahead. Maybe you're 4 steps ahead of someone, behind someone in your process. And all we do, because we don't really want to know. Here's what we say. I'm going to be very real. This is what we say to people who don't look like us, don't eat. I don't care about you. I don't care how you grew up. I don't care about you. I don't care anything about you. All I care is about me. And, so you got to please me. If not, move out of my way. I don't want anything to do with you.
Which is not of God, right? Because we should celebrate our differences. God is a creative God, there's all these different, kinds of people from all walks of life, different, cultural backgrounds. It should be celebrated. It'd be boring if we all look the same.
And the thing is that because we don't care about each other, we don't ask the questions.
Yeah.
How you grew up.
That's born out of selfishness.
Where did you have your 2 parents? How did you come to this place?
Right.
How did you come to Indiana? you were in Oakland. How do you get to Indiana? Didn't you say you were in New York? So how do you process? And then people
Context is important
Yeah.
don't
to understand
Right.
people. What's the context? I could make a statement, and it could go. So you could interpret it one way. You can interpret it one way. Someone else could interpret it a different way. But if we all have context, then we should all arrive to the same conclusion. So cultural context.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's why we're trying to help people in everything we do, in our jobs, in our daily. But today, because we're talking about this, and we'll elaborate this. I think this is a big topic that won't be solved, or at least shared in one. We'll probably have 3 or 4 episodes on this topic, because I think it's very interesting, because this is the reason why we're really not loving our neighbor well. We're really not loving our neighbor well because we're not asking questions, and we're asking the wrong questions. What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. Go back to wherever you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And where is that? Are you God to tell? So it's those things that then humanity get frustrated, because we really don't know what happened.
Yeah.
A 5-year-old cannot make a decision to come to another different land. Some decision was made by his parents, who were trying to do the best decision, but they didn't think that he was going to be maybe traumatized. Gladly I was, and maybe I don't know. I look at my, maybe I did some dumb decisions, because I remember when I was coming in the train, and my mom had to cover my ears because one of the coyotes, the human trafficking guys, was raping a teenager behind on the seats, and she was just crying and screaming, and I can hear her just stop, and and he's just raping this young girl in the back of the train, and I'm 5-year-old, and my mom trying to cover my ears. That cannot be undone. Right. She didn't think that was gonna happen. You cannot change anything, and that's that's on the brain, on the ears, on the and then you don't know that the train, you're gonna pick up the wrong train, and the people are telling you, no, this train is going this way, and the right train is going that way. It's already departing, and here you go, your mom and you and your 3-month-old sister running towards the train that is moving, and the cousins and all of them who were coming, and literally your mom throwing you on the air so your cousin can catch you, and the baby, and she jumping on the train. So those things you cannot change. You risk your life. It's almost like a movie sometimes. People don't believe it, but it happens. Yep. People don't believe, or can't even imagine. I remember maybe like the movies of Rambo, when they go into that lake or that river, and then they come out and they have leashes and they have to take all that. Yeah. We went through a place like that where they had to carry us because we had to walk through there. And it's those situations that we could have lost our lives. And as you grow, you start seeing how God protected us, even from, the mistakes or whatever happened through the road. And I'm gonna elaborate later on more and more and more of the stories that I remember, but they never leave. They're there for you. They're there as an example. If you almost died, they're there as an example. I remember being at gunpoint at 5 years old, in Tijuana, because they were stealing from us. I remember my mom hiding money in my boot so they wouldn't take the little money that we had, and my cousin and my mom, and they were all at gunpoint. Wow. And you cannot do that. And I could make a decision to be angry and mad. And this is why I tell people, you have to have grace It don't matter what you've been through. You have to understand that God kept you safe. And a lot of people get mad at the system, at other people, because of how we have been treated or something. Yeah, it's wrong, but we need to heal. Because for the longest time, I had a lot of bitterness in my heart. For the longest time, I was mad. For the longest time, I was mad at Mexicans. I hated Mexicans because of the way we were treated through Mexico. Yeah. You know, I gotta say, I love my Mexican brothers and friends. I'm married to a Mexican. But growing up as a teenager, I hated it, people calling me a Mexican. It was like if I would have called you something else. If I would have said, yo, mama, it was if I would have cussed at you. If someone would call me Mexican, I will get mad. Like, mad, I want to punch you. Like, I would be on your face. Yeah. That's how bad, when I look at it now, I'm like, maybe because of this, I became this stupid, fool, mad kid because of what happened. Because of how I was mistreated by some people. Yeah. But that wasn't all Mexicans. That was just a few people through the road that mistreated us. Yeah. But there were some great Mexican families that gave us food, gave us shelter, protected us. But there's evil in this world, and they make us, when someone hurts us, it makes us think that everyone else is the same boat. So knowing each other's culture help us understand each other. Help us understand really how we are. Sometimes I have to stay still because I wasn't unstable. I was unstable all the time. I grew up, 5 years in Guatemala, 4 years in New York, 2 years in Guatemala, 2 years in LA, 7 years in Oakland, then 18 years in Indiana, 5 years in Houston. And I have to watch myself because, even my name, it says that my name means that I'm a foreigner in a strange land. So my name actually messes me up too. Because sometimes I get to this place where I don't want to be here anymore.
It's crazy. It the way you lived, your body, your mind, your world becomes used to change. Yeah. And either you start getting bored, so you want change, or you feel uncomfortable with stability and you're like, I've never had that, I don't like it. Yeah. So you move, you switch, and how something like that, just the physical location change throughout your life, how does that affect relationships? Well, I've been in this relationship for X amount of time. Well, you had to have change in a relationship all the time as you were growing up, because the 18 years here or prior to that, you're moving and your friends aren't moving with you. People, the girl you're interested wasn't moving with you, right? So you're used to change, and so it affects, whether we realize it or not, it affects how we go about life moving forward. Oh, I've been at this job for 4 years. It now feels stable. I don't think I like this. I'm out of here, right?
What's next?
It creates, or I'm bored.
Yeah.
So it's cultural context to you specifically, because now we're not even talking about cultural context of Guatemala, but just of an immigrant. Yeah. Right? That's another aspect. So I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, because even people who come here.
Hey, 1 second. Just context. Today we're meeting with, we have our rebrand get together with everyone. So we got to start wrapping up here in the next 5 minutes or so. We're past the time that we said we weren't going to go past. So let's wrap it up here in the next few minutes.
Yeah. So funny that you say it, because, and this is why, and God allows that some of the things to happen because He's molding who He wants you to be. More and more, and this is why I believe in what we were talking about, and eventually I'll let everyone know. But how God wants to play. Some people he places in places for a season to start something, and then he moves them somewhere else to start it, and then he moves them somewhere else to start it, because you have that calling, that gift, that you just go and you start something, then you go and you start something, then you go. And we need some of those, because you need someone to shake.
Starters, yeah.
And
Movers
then
and
so
shakers.
so sometimes that's how I feel.
Mhm.
And then someone else continues it, and it's like someone plants, someone waters it, and God gives
Increase.
the increase.
Yeah.
So sometimes he allows us to go through stuff because he wants us in places.
Yeah.
And yeah, I seen my life like that. So but until we know people's stories, we are so good to judge people and say, nah, look at, so and so, and look at this, and all of them are the same. And rather than seeing them separately as men and women created by God in the image of God, that have gone through difficult things, have come through to America the right way or the wrong way, documented or undocumented. I remember this is a joke, but it happened. There was a guy crossing through the border, and they asked him for his green card, and he says, "I don't have anything." And why would I need that? He says, "Well, you need that to cross over here." Well, I can tell you something. Let me see. He opens his Bible and says, over here in the Bible, it says that the land is the Lord's and everything that is in it, and the Lord is my Father, therefore I'm his son, therefore the land is mine too. Have a blessed day. They let him go. Guy is crazy. But it's true. The land is the Lord's and everything that is in it. And if the Lord is my Father, I'm his son, then there is no borders for me. But it's funny, but it did happen in real life. We heard it, but we argue and we fight and we judge because we don't know, and we don't want to know.
That's the others. I think sometimes we don't want to know.
Yeah.
It takes time
Yeah,
to ask questions.
Yeah.
To
it's
get to know someone.
sacrifice. It's like we really. It's like, I don't care enough. I just want to be in my own little bubble,
Yep.
and in my own little room, and my own little business. And that's not who God called us to be. He called us to be. He says there's two things that he said. If you forget about everything else, you love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and then you love your neighbor as yourself. You
Yeah.
forget about everything else.
Yeah.
Those are the two things that we have to do.
I think the perspective we need to take away from that, I don't know, we're trying to wrap up, but if God was to take that attitude,
Yeah.
I'm just going to stick to myself. I don't care about them. Doesn't really matter, to me, anything about their lives. I gave them those things, but I'll just be over here. That is not, who he is.
Yeah.
And if we are created in his image and in his likeness by a relational creative God, that's who we need to be.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you, there are believers who have that attitude, that don't care about anybody else. They don't care about relationships with other cultures. They don't care about relationships with their own culture even, and just stick to yourself. That's not what God has called us to do.
So we're going to have this probably going to be like 6, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 episodes on this. And I
Everybody
think
gets 3 or 4 parts.
it's going to be building. It's going to be building because this is a beautiful
That's
thing.
big. That's huge.
And we are living in days and times that we're hurting each other. We're killing each other because we don't care about each other. So we need to start caring about each other. You are loved. You are made beautiful in the image of God. And don't let no one determine or lie to you that you're not. You're made beautiful in the image of God.
Amen.
And it's a struggle that we're going through. So if we don't have anything else, I think we call it a day for today. But we got lots coming up soon. So God bless you guys. We want to do a worship concert pretty soon also, and we're talking about many things happening in the near future. So have a blessed day. God bless you. May the Lord use you in mighty ways, and may He restore your heart if you have been hurt by the church, by His people, or anyone else. Anything else? That's it. Okay.
Love you.
Love you guys. Hopefully next time we are in a permanent place already. So talk to you soon.
Love you. Peace.
All right.